Okay, good evening, guys. We're recording now. So today is the 2nd of February, and this is the evening section of L and M4, and we're doing all Beta 6 course. So in case you're reviewing on YouTube, that's what you're getting. All right, so let's get to the homework assignments. I'm just going to go through all the homework assignments first, right? And you can follow along with whatever you have on your papers and see if you've done it right or wrong. And right now, we're sort of in a learning phase. I think it's not really appropriate to assign grades yet because we're just learning a new technique. And we're just going to see what we have. The first key is A, yeah? And we have an Italian augmented 6 chord in the key of A. And we know the formula for that, and that is that we have flat 6 in the bass, we have scale degree 1, and scale degree 1, and then sharp 4 as so this is bass, tenor, alto, and soprano, SATB. So roughly it has to work out this way. So far, so good, yeah? Just give me a thumbs up because that makes things roll along easier. Just give me a thumbs up, yeah? Okay. Very good.
Yep.
So A, if we're in key of A, then scale degree 1 is A, right? So we can sort of immediately place these two inner voices because it's scale degree 1 and scale degree 1. That's a given. That's very easy. And then we have to work out what is flat 6 and what is sharp 4. Or think about it as lowered 6 and raised 4 because they don't necessarily have to be spelled with flats and sharps the way that the name would indicate. But in order to work this out, we have to find out what is scale degree 5 in the key of A. A, B, C, D, E. It's as simple as that, really. You simply just have to know the alphabet. And you have to know a little bit about numbers, but not very, very much, actually. So 5 is E. And how do I work that out? Well, if A is 1, then B is 2, then C, I mean, it'll be C sharp, but it doesn't really matter. C, D, and E. So you just have to be able to count to 5 and 5 notes up from wherever you start in the alphabet. If this key here is G, then the alphabet sort of starts on G and it rolls over after G, then A, B, C. We know that. It's very simple, actually. You just have to sort of be able to break down this task and figure out what is up and down. Literally speaking, this is what it's about. So flat 6, if 5 is E, then scale degree flat 6 is a half step above E. That would be F. Yeah? And we might want to indicate that it's F natural because in this key, the expected note, both in major and minor, by the way, could be an F sharp. Certainly in major, it will be an F sharp, right? So we have to understand that it's F natural, and we would like to indicate that. And if I go to scale degree raised 4, we know that that's a half step under 5. And that would be D sharp. So far, we got everything mapped out. Now we just have to understand that flat 6 is in the bass. I've just written it up here because it's up from 5 and this one is down from 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Very good. So flat 6 is F, and that's in the bass. Like that. Hold on 1 second. It's going to happen a lot. So F natural would be in the bass, and we can immediately see here that spelling the lower 6 scale degree, just because we call it flat 6, does not mean that we have to spell it with a flat. Because, and you see that over and over and over again, that undergraduates get this wrong, that they spell it as an F flat. Well, F flat is the same pitch as E. So that wouldn't really make a difference. So we got to keep these things separate. And then D sharp, we understand that that's raised 4 and that goes into soprano. Now, obviously, in real music, you can have any of these notes appear in any voice, but this is just a way of understanding it and a way of eventually part writing it in progressions so that it's easy to handle. Just so long as you know that it's just a representation of what usually takes place. Okay, that's your spelling of the Italian minor 6 chord in the key of A major, A minor. You'll find it in both modes. I mean, usually really in the minor mode, but it can also be in the major mode. If I remove this and this and this is just for your working it out. We're going to do it with all the homework assignments for today. And after that, I think you'll know that, okay, this is how to do it. And I have a solid technique down and you can do it too then. And many of you actually have been perfect homework. Some of you, even without having any instruction, that's pretty impressive. That's what I want to see. I mean, as I said, right now, we're not grading the homework because we're just learning a new technique. We're just seeing where we stand, right? We're just learning this. And don't be too discouraged if you think, oh, I find this very difficult, whatever. I think once you've done it a few times, you see, okay, it's not actually as scary as it sounds. This is considered, by the way, this is considered the sort of top end of tonal theory. I don't really understand why it's considered that difficult. It can only be because it's sometimes presented in a, in a very complex setting of music. And, very often you can see that these chords are heavily altered. And so you would suggest certainly a very rich harmonic language, and that is true. So, I mean, the music that makes use of these harmonies are, tend to be complex music in many ways. But that doesn't mean that the procedure for working this stuff out is complicated. It really isn't. Not if we do it like this. If you do it in some other hocus pocus way, some voodoo way, voodoo theory, then it might become difficult. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to stick to this. Okay, so this is what I want to see on your homework assignment. All the other stuff is what you work out on your paper at home. That's the spelling of the Italian minor 6 chord. Let me see. And okay, so the next one is the French minor 6 chord in the same key. That shouldn't be a problem because I can just change this one. We understand that the same note is in the bass. So F natural is flat 6. Just remember that. Then in this key, if scale degree 5 is E, half step up is F, not F flat. Scale degree 1 is still that one. And for the French minor 6 chord, as you know, instead of scale degree 1 here, we have scale degree 2. Like that. So that's the spelling of the French minor 6 chord in the key of A. A flat, A major, A minor. Those are the first two assignments that you have for today. So far, so good?
If you just please put the camera a bit closer to the number, because I have trouble seeing.
Okay. Let me see what I can do.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. As you can hear, my wife is teaching in the other room, so I don't have all that much space. Is that better? Okay. Can you all see?
Yes, yes.
Cool. Very good. We're sort of we're hunkered down up here in Inwood, with 2 feet of snow. I'm sure you are too, where you are. All right, so C major or C minor, Italian and French. Okay, key of C, minor major, same thing. Here's the Italian, and here's the French. So the important aspect, actually, I'll get back to that. There are two attachments to the homework assignment I send you. There's a little sort of overview of the 4 augmented 6 course where they're sort of presented in a kind of a schema, if you like, where you can see, you can compare them side by side. And I'll get back to that. But just as long as you refer to that, you'll be good. The two we're doing today, let me just write them up actually. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's the Italian. Here's the French. Flat 6 is in the base for both of them. 1 and 1 would be in one of the inner voices. It could be the other inner voice, doesn't really matter. This one is 1 and this one is 2. That's the only difference between them. Sharp 4. Okay, so that's what we're doing. You have that in your own handout. In C, let's just do the Italian easy peasy. C, and we can do the same C here. That's fine. It doesn't really matter if it's the same pitch, because you're going to have tenors and altos singing the same note. They very often do that. That sounds very different to if just one or the other group is singing them, because the two timbres are blending now, so they will sound different. Okay, in C, scale degree 5 is G. Whoops, I still write 6 here. I did that all morning. I don't know why. So G, yeah, not a okay. And that means that flat 6 is a half step up from G, and that's A flat. So far, so good, right? Cool. Sharp 4 is a half step below G, so that's F sharp. And all you have to remember is just that flat 6 goes in the bass, so that's A flat. It could also be that A flat down here. That's up to you, really. And the F sharp goes up there. Again, the reason why I put it up like this is that 4, 5, and 6, we have an inherent understanding of up and down. We just have to remember that this note goes in the bass and this note goes in the soprano. And that's it. That's the Italian. And we can very quickly see that the French will be more similar than different. I mean, it'll be completely the same chord. They are actually all the same. They work the same way. They pretty much sound similar enough. I mean, we won't do that just right now. I just want the nuts and bolts down in a very practical way. Hold on. We're going to do it in a very, very practical way so that you know how to spell this stuff and be really super good at that. And then we're going to do some progressions with it. And we're going to hear a lot of music, and we're going to hear how these chords sound, because they do sound different. They do behave slightly differently. But we can see that the only difference between the Italian and the French is that scale degree 2 would be in one of the inner voices. I've just decided that it's in the alto. So this is soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Yeah, that's it, easy. So instead of having scale degree 1 here, I'm going to have the whole step up from C is D, and then F sharp. That's the solution to in C, major, minor, Italian, and French augmented 6 chords. Big deal, eh? Don't know why this is considered so difficult, but it is. And again, you know, you can sort of see that much of this is sort of altered compared to the regular scale that we would have. And so I suppose on some level, this represents some advanced harmonic function. Fair enough. Okay, D flat. Oh, now we start, all right? And so D flat minor, French augmented 6 chord. D flat minor, French augmented 6 chord. Now this should be really, really difficult, shouldn't it? Because there is in fact no D flat minor. And if there was, they would have 8 flats. And for that reason, we call it C sharp minor. So there isn't a key called D flat minor. That doesn't mean we can't find ourselves in a territory, in a neighborhood, so to speak, that locally is in D flat minor. That happens very often in sort of late romantic music. It certainly also happens in jazz, very often. And you would very often see chords that are labeled D flat minor, because that's not, you know, you could have a chord, you just don't have a key that's like that. Well, we have to navigate it from the key. And that means that we have to find scale degree 5 first. Scale degree 5 is the same as it would be in D, but just with a flat. So instead of having A, which it will be in D major or D minor, right? You have A flat. You see that? Always compare to something that you know better. Like D major, most people know. D minor, people know, because you have one flat or 2 sharps or whatever. But A scale degree 5, flat 6 would be a half step up from A flat. And we understand that that is really the pitch A, but we can't spell it as an A, because if I remove this flat, I have sharp 5, and that's really not the same, technically speaking, as flat 6. So this is the pitch that I want, but I have to spell it. So if that is scale degree 5, you see that? Then 6 would be some type of B that is the same pitch as the one we also call A. So that will be B double flat, B flat, B double flat. That's a half step above A flat. B double flat. Now we know what flat 6 is in the key of D flat. It's B double flat. And you can verify that because the 6th scale degree, or the flat 6th scale degree in the key of D would be B flat. So in D flat, it follows that it's B double flat. Scale degree sharp 4 would be A flat. And you can, if you look at the keyboard, you'll see here's A flat, here's G. So G natural, that would be raised 4 in the key of D flat, because the G we normally expect, a regular G, so to speak, would be G flat. Now I raised it because I removed the flat, and therefore it's raised. Raised 4 in this key is G natural. So far, so good?
Yes.
Cool, very good. Again, I can just add my scale degree 1. Let's say scale degree 1 would be here, right? And scale degree 2 would be just a whole step up from that. It's easy. It really is easy. G natural would go up here, right? That one up here, and this one here, B flat or B double flat. We can also put it up here, but I'm just going to remove them a little bit. So that's your French augmented 6th chord in the key of D flat. D flat major, D flat minor, same difference. This is completely and purely logical. It is not difficult. Only if it's presented in some sort of voodoo way, you know, would it appear to be difficult, but it isn't. Just go with it, go with your natural logic, and have the confidence to add a double flat when you say, okay, it has to be spelled with the letter name above scale degree 5. And likewise, this one here, if this is 5, this must be 4. It's some type of G. The G that is a half step away from this one here. So you can work everything out this way. This is foolproof. If you sit the entrance exam to, let's say, Manners or Manhattan School of Music or some school like that, they're going to ask you to spell all this stuff out, and they're going to ask you to part write progressions with these kinds of chords here, and they will throw this at you. You know, the first thing you do is just to work it out like this. Then you know the chord, and you will understand that this one goes down, really down, because This has a double flat, so therefore it's going to go to A flat here. This one here has a resolved, it's resolved as a leading tone to A flat. So both of these outer words are going to go to A flat. We'll get to that. So right now we're just concerned about spelling this stuff. Okay, so B major or B minor, whatever. Italian augmented. Again, we go to scale of B5 to work out. I mean, we already know that B is going to be in the inner voices here, right? I'm just going to put them here. Since there's no context, we might as well just write within the system whatever B we know the best. You know, the only criterion is really that the tenor sits in a pretty decent register, at, you know, somewhere around middle C. That's a good range for the tenor. This is a little bit of a high out, so I understand that, but given no context, we can just put it there if we want. So scale to B5 is F sharp. How do I know that? Well, you can simply just write out your B major scale. Here's B, whole step up, is C sharp, whole step up is D sharp, half step up, and now on scale before, and Dana tally falling. I don't think so. Okay, so we got that right? If you ever don't know the scale degree or scale degree 5 in a key, whole, half, whole, that'll take you there. If you can work that out, then you can do any key. It doesn't matter how complicated it is. Okay, so scale degree 5 is F sharp. Scale degree flat 6 would be a half step up from F sharp, which is G natural. And we would indicate that because in the key of B, we would assume a G sharp, wouldn't we? Sharp 4 is a half step below F sharp. And if we want to work it out, we can sort of see here's F sharp, right? So a half step below that. So here's my target. You know, I want to have this pitch here, right? But I can't spell it with F because that's scale to B5. So if I spell it with an F, I'm still at scale to B5. So I have to spell it with, so this is 5, right? And this is 6, and this is 4. If I want the kind of E that is the same pitch as an F natural, it would be E sharp. You understand? E sharp, which is also the leading tone to F sharp. So now I've got everything mapped out. Sharp 4, E sharp goes up here. And G natural goes here, for instance. That's your Italian 6 in the key of B. Good?
Yeah.
How many? Okay, how many?
Writing.
Huh?
Still writing it.
Okay. How many has got everything absolutely right up until this point? You got it, yeah. I saw that, Raphael. You know, you you already have a degree in music.
I had one little simple question.
Yeah.
How do I write? What's the correct way to write the double sharp?
So double sharp. There's no symbol for double flat, unfortunately. I can't explain why that is. It's just, you know, syntax, right? But this is the correct way of writing a double sharp. It's an X, basically. And double flat is double flat. Go figure. But that's just the way it is. And I don't know why we say SHCB when we in fact read all the voices from the basin off. I don't know why it's called the 6/5 chord when we in fact read it from the basin off. I don't know, you know, but it's just the way it is. So the correct way to notate a double sharp is an X. All right, let me, okay. D in Italian, just gonna race through that. Scale with 5 again, is A, so flat 6. B flat and raised 4 is G sharp. And 1 and 1. And then B flat, like here, for instance, and G sharp. That's the answer to the question of B, yeah? There it is. And then the next one is interesting. I mean, they're all interesting. They're all the same, by the way, right? I mean, they all sort of require the same computation. A flat, French 6 is A flat. Okay, so here's an interesting key, A flat minor, for instance, right? A French 6 in the key of A flat. Okay, scale degree 5 is E flat. Flat 6 would be a half step up from E flat, which is the same as E, right? But it has to be spelled with the next letter name up. That would be F flat. And sharp 4 would be the leading tone to E flat or half step below E flat. That would be D natural. You can look at all this. This is why Professor Margaret and I work so closely together with this in keyboard harmony. That you're probably drilling this stuff. That's what she says. I don't know because I'm not there. That you're drilling this stuff in keyboard with her. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. But you know, even if you're not, or let's say you don't have keyboard or something, you know, you can just throw off your keyboard and look at it like that. You see E flat, if that's 5, then this is sharp 4, right? So half step below 4, and flat 6 would be this one here, but you can't spell it with E because that's already taken as scale degree 5, and therefore it must be F flat. Okay, flat 6 is F flat. Scale degree 1 would be A flat. And then scale degree 2, right? Because we are French. A flat is scale degree 1. So B flat would be scale degree 2. And then you have D natural up here. That's a French 6 in the key of A flat minor. Now A flat minor is not, that's not technically speaking the key either, because there's 7 flats. So therefore we prefer not to do that, but we prefer to write out the proper key, which is G sharp minor, which has 5 sharps, because that's easier to read than 7 flats. But we can locally find ourselves in the key of A flat minor. It behaves just like A minor, by the way, where all the notes in the scale have been lowered by a half step. So there's no hocus pocus to it. It's simply just the way that the logic would suggest that it behaves.
Dr. Franson, are the notes on the treble clef B and D?
These guys here, that's a B flat, and that's a D.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Okay, E minor, Italian 6. Scale degree 5 is B. Oops. Let me do it the way that I've been doing it so far. Scale degree 5 is B. That means flat 6 is C natural. Yeah? Half step up from B. And scale degree sharp 4 would be A sharp, the leading tone to B. Again, if you're uncertain about your scale degrees 5 in whatever key, just work it out. Here's E, whole step up is F sharp, whole step up is G sharp, half step up is A, and a whole step up is B. There you go. That's scale degree 5. Just do it like that. If you really get flustered and you can't work it out, do it that way. Italian, so when you keep E, so E here, for instance, it could also be, you know, that one. That's the same E, but that's fine. And then A sharp, and then C natural. I could also put the C up here, but this is probably better. That's your Italian 6 in the key of E. And so, again, you'll notice that flat 6 is not spelled with a flat here, because C flat would be the same pitch as B. Okay, in the key of F sharp, French augmented 6, scale degree 5 is C sharp. Because in the key of F, it's C, so in F sharp, it will be C sharp. No big deal. Flat 6 is D natural, because in F sharp, we would strongly assume a D sharp. Sharp 4 is the leading tone to C sharp, which is B sharp. Because the leading tone to C would be B, so the leading tone to C sharp would be B sharp. Don't call this C, because that would be flat 5, and that's not the same as sharp 4, not in terms of direction. So French augmented 6 chord, F sharp, I'm just going to write in my F sharp here, for instance. That's scale degree 1. And scale degree 2 would be G sharp. In both major and minor, the distance between scale degrees 1 and 2 in scale is a whole step. That works out really well. B sharp would be here, and D natural would be here, like that. French augmented 6 chord in the key of F sharp, major, minor, usually minor. That's the correct spelling of that. I'm rushing forward a little bit because I want to get to the new material that we're going to build onto this and send you home a little bit later with a homework assignment.
Dr. Franson, for some reason I didn't get the homework assignment. And
I haven't done it yet.
No, the previous one, the one that are you handing it today supposedly?
Well, it's in your E360 email.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, so B flat. Oh, so B flat, B flat. Key of B flat. Italian 6. Scale degree 5 in the key of B flat is F. Sharp 4 is E. Natural, right? Because in the key of B flat, we would assume an E flat. Flat 6 is G flat. B flat and B flat. Any register, whatever, but that's a good way. E natural would be here. And then G flat would be here, for instance, like that. That's the spelling in B flat minor, 5 flats, Italian or minor 6 chord, spelled like that. And then the last one. In C sharp, French or minor 6 chord in the key of C sharp. Okay, scale of 5 again is G sharp. Flat 6 is A natural. Sharp 4 is F double sharp. And you can work that out by seeing, here is your G sharp. It's this key here. What is a half step below that? Well, it will be some type of G, but it can't be spelled with a G because that's some variant of scale degree 5. So it must be F sharp double sharp. Yeah? So in no particular order, let me write it in like that. Scale degree 2 would be D sharp here. Scale degree 1 would be C sharp. And scale degree whatever is A natural, like that. Here's your spelling of a French or minor 6 chord in the key of C sharp minor, for instance. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Good, very good. Now, it's to be expected probably that you have a few sort of wrong boo-boos along the way, maybe just with misspellings of notes. That's pretty common, and that's fine. But we want to see if we can weed out these little difficulties. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add the 2 next chords here, and as you'll see, they are very, very, very similar. The Swiss augmented 6 chord and the German augmented 6 chord. Sharp 4 is still up here. Flat 6 is still in the bass. So you can see that they're much more similar than different. This one here is even the same. And this one here is now raised second scale degree. And this one here is the flattened third scale degree. We'll sort of get to what that is. So in fact, raised 2 and flat 3 is the same pitch. So you can't hear the difference between these 2 chords. So why have 2 different spellings of it? Because it's really just 2 different spellings of it. This one goes to major because if this is already flat 3, then you can see a flat 3 or a lower third scale degree would be the minor note. This one is in minor, this one is in major. When we start to part right with it, you can see very clearly why one is spelled one way and the other one is the other way. It's actually quite logical. So let me do a random key of let's say F minor, right? Just F minor. Again, we go to scale degree 5, which is C. That's easy enough. It doesn't really matter what key, key signature is for F minor. It has 4 flats, but that, we're not concerned about that. Scale degree 5 is the same as good old F major, F major, F minor. Scale degree 5 is the same. Flat 6 would be a half step up from C. D flat. Not C sharp, that would be raised 5, so flat 6 would be D flat. Sharp 4 is a half step down from C. It doesn't need to be spelled with a sharp. As a matter of fact, very often it isn't. And that's the note B. Right? Half step down from C is B. And let's do the French augmented 6 chord in F minor. F, scale degree 1, we can put that in. That's fine. scale degree, actually, what are we doing? We're doing the Swiss amendment, right? I'm sorry, I've been teaching since 10 o'clock this morning, nonstop. It's been really crazy day. So the Swiss amendment 6 chord. Okay, so this is scale degree 1, right? Let's hold on to that. Scale degree 2 would be a whole step up from this one here. That would be the note G. That's scale degree 2. So raised 2 would be that one. And the altered scale degree, sharp 4 and flat 6, we already worked out. D flat in the bass, like that. That's flat 6. Sharp 4 is B, and it goes in right here. There's your Swiss augmented 6 chord in the key of F minor or F major, right? Because this one here is usually used in the major keys. Because when it moves on here, that raised second scale degree is going to A natural. And this one here is going to go to C. This one here is going to go to C as well. And this one here is going to stay. So what you in fact have here is a cadential 6/4 chord in the key of F major. It makes no sense to leave the G sharp to A flat because that's the same pitch. Right? Do you understand that? And that's why the Swiss augmented 6 chord works in the major keys, in all the major keys. It would be completely logical. You can see it as we go forward. Now, if I translate this one here, not as sharp 2, but flat 3, we can very clearly see that it would be the same pitch, but it would simply just be spelled like that. And therefore, it stays here. Now you have a cadential 6/4 chord in the key of F minor. But use your logical sense. Use your sense to say, okay, I can already spell a French augmented 6 chord. That's scale degree regular 2. I can raise that by a half step. And I can also spell that as a flat 3. If you know scale degree 1, which you do, that's the name of the key. Then you can go a minor third up from that. You'll see how all this ties into very, very strong fundamentals. Being able to spell a minor third and a major third from any given note. That is the key issue here. It's all down to whole steps and half steps. Major thirds, minor thirds. That's why we're drilling that so hard in the beginning. And that's why it's complete rubbish when people who haven't taught theory, they say, oh, anyone can teach the fundamentals. No. It works the opposite way. Anybody can teach this. If you have a group of students with strong fundamentals, this shouldn't be a problem. And it isn't a problem.
Franson, you're right about that. You're really about that. And another way of teaching is if you regurgitate all that you've learned and you pass it on right away, then you contain it better. I did it, and that's how I excel in physics in high school.
That's very true. You learn things very, very well by teaching it, because you have to explain it first to yourself. That's the only way you can actually teach it to someone else, is that if you really understand it. So that's a very good point. I really appreciate that, and you're right. You're absolutely right. Let me just do a few more examples, and then we'll take it off because my voice is going. But I think we get it. You know, I mean, I sort of can see. Yeah, we get it. Very good. I appreciate that. Here's a little trick. It means nothing, but remember that. You know, I've been teaching music for 42 years this year. I'm turning 60 later on this year, and I started teaching. My first professional gig as a music teacher was at 18. So that makes it a frighteningly long period of 42 years. So this distillation here, you won't see very often in textbooks because it's spread out, and I don't know why they're doing that way. It's spread out over many, many, many pages with a lot of verbiage that makes it very, very difficult to understand. This is dead easy to understand, actually, if you put it up this way. You can see that this voice is the same, this voice is the same, this voice is the same. So they're more similar than different. This one here would appear to go up and up and up. Strictly speaking, they're not really going up, although the numbers, we can sort of work it out. We can see that this one here is higher than that one. This one would appear to be higher than that one, but it's not really. But, you know, it's a good image. And if you look at this, this is just completely by coincidence, that there is absolutely no intrinsic logic to it. But the way I presented it here, you go from the south to the north. If you look at a map of Europe, it just it's a mnemonic device, you know, that you can, an aid to the memory, in other words. You can sort of see that this one here, the Italian, is the one with 2, scale degrees 1. France, the next you know, country up from south to north, because it's located right above Italy. Switzerland is sitting right between France and Germany. So it just happens to be, I think, a really, really smart way of remembering it. But it's a little hokey, I don't care. It works, okay? It really works. And if you're sitting in that exam at Manhattan School of Music in a semester from now, and you can't remember it, remember this. If you remember the map of Europe, then you remember it. Maybe you're not as familiar with Europe as I am, but you know, just look at the map and sort of, you should be familiar enough to know that Italy is a southern country, and France is sort of Central Europe, Central/Northern Europe, and certainly Northern Europe here, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be able to locate places and whatever. That's not really required. Let's do another one, yeah? Let's do, I don't know, A flat, just because we can. I mean, it's really not, but that's an evil key to be sure. If we're doing the Swiss and the German, we'll be doing A flat major for the Swiss and A flat minor for the German, which should be really, really difficult, right? But it isn't. Because we're going to do it the same way. Scale degree 5 in the key of A flat, both major and minor, would be E flat. Half step up, flat 6, is F flat, because between E and F is a half step. So if I start from E flat, it will be F flat. Scale degree sharp 4 is a half step down from E flat, which is B natural. Okay, so let's work out what 2 is. Scale degree 2 would be a whole step up from A flat. That's B flat. So sharp 2 would then be B, you see, B natural.
Yes.
It's really, really simple. I have no idea why theory teachers insist on doing it any other way than this. I can't give you a good explanation for it, but I can guarantee you that a lot of students are being bumped back into undergraduate theory one more time because they can't practice. There is nothing to it. It's easy peasy, and you can do it too. At the end of this semester, I can guarantee you, you will all be flying. If you just show up for your lessons, right, and you do, you know, most of the homework that you're required to do, you know, you'll be fine. The important thing is to show up for the lessons, because I think I can break it down in a way that's really easy to understand. A flat, okay, so A flat we can put in because that's scale degree 1. We know that one, right? Scale degree 2 would be B flat, and we're going to bump that up by another half step. That would be B natural, okay? Flat 6, F flat. Because remember that 5 is E flat in this one here. And then sharp 4 is D natural. And here's your Swiss of minor 6 chord. All you have to do is to convert this note here to flat 3. This is now sharp 2, right? Look at this. Sharp 2 is that one. But if I'm going up to flat 3, it has to be the same pitch, but just spelled with the next letter name up, because that's 3. Look at the numbers here. I go up one step, right? So that has to be some type of C that is the same pitch as a B. And that will be C flat. And it works out, if you think about it, in A minor, The minor third up from A is a C natural. So logically speaking, if you're on A flat, it will be C flat. That's all I have for you guys. Now we are fluent in the most complicated, what is it called, the tonal theory aspect. This is the one. I mean, you gotta understand that when you apply to grad school, selling education is a business, because educational institutions understand that if you get a degree from a prominent institution, you can get a good job and make money and be on your way in your career. So these degrees, like if you graduate from a prominent graduate school in music, from Curtis or Juilliard or Nlsb School of Music or something like that, those degrees are valuable. So it's a business for them to sell them because people are willing to pay a lot of money for these degrees, right? And they have, at these institutions, they have a number of doctoral students, PhD students, or DMA students, or composers who study for whatever, who are, already professionals in their field. If you get into a doctoral program, you could very easily be the faculty at that school. That's how it works. They will only accept you if they regard you as being a peer of the other faculty members there. And in order to entice these doctoral students to come to a particular school, they have to have a bunch of people who need remedial training because they either, had bad training or they couldn't be bothered to show up for their undergraduate studies because they didn't like theory or ear training or music history or whatever. And so therefore, it's in the interest of this institution that is accepting you as a graduate student to give you remedial training, because then they've got a class of recruits for all their doctoral students. That's how it works. I'm just telling you like it is. It's not bad to do this again. I mean, the more times you do it, but there's no reason, because you've already paid for this course, right? You know what I mean? There's no reason why you shouldn't learn it the first time. All it requires, at least with me, is that you show up for your lessons. Because I'm going to break it down and explain it to you in a way that I can guarantee you that very, very few doctoral students will be able to, because they haven't done it for 42 years like I have. All right, so not to hoot my own horn, I'm no smarter than the other guy, but I am very good at breaking things down that are traditionally viewed as being very difficult. I can make it very simple because it isn't difficult. That's just, I don't know why people insist on doing that way, but I had to explain this, just like Olivia said just a moment ago. I had to explain this to myself in order to understand it so I could teach it to others. I first had to learn it myself. And this is the way I taught myself how to do it. And it will work for you too, I guarantee you. All right, so let's pack it in and say we've done our dues for the day, yeah? Any questions?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Professor.
So yeah, I did check my E360, and I was like, goodness gracious, it's not there. Proof I will show. Very heart wrenching, but I can assure you I didn't receive the email.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Something I actually do, Professor, to actually break myself from the limitation I come from, I try to find augmented sixth chords in the context of a hymn, in the context of a spiritual, or even in the context of the music in my country. Now I've been doing that to really much break myself from the barrier that limits the academia I'm learning from what I see every day.
Well, if you stay with it for a little bit longer, because this particular chord here is the one that Coltrane uses in Giant Steps, for instance. This is the altered 5/5 chord that takes John Coltrane from one end of the circular fifth to the opposite end of the circular fifth in one giant step. So it's not that you necessarily would see these chords in hymns necessarily. You would see it in big romantic repertoire, and you'll see it in bebop. So these are heavily altered chords that are, they're indicative of a style of music that is pretty developed, harmonically speaking, right? That doesn't mean that this is hard to do. It actually isn't. But it means that these chords we would find in concert music in the classical vein. I mean, you'd find it in Beethoven, you'd find it in Wagner, in Schubert, in Schumann, whatever. You will also find it actually in earlier music. You have it in Bach. I mean, Bach uses this chord, and Mozart uses it too, but they don't really use it in the same way as you do later on. You would find many of these chords in barbershop quartets, for instance. They are very, very prominent, very prevalent in barbershop quartets, where you have some very, very way out harmonies that are very chromatic and that are moving sort of chromatically, meaning that they're using all, you can see here, look, there's not a single note in any of these chords here that is the same as it is in the scale. Right? Do you understand? So these are, I understand. I'm just trying to make it easy, because mechanically speaking, if you know half steps and whole steps, this is not difficult. You just have to really be good at that. You have to be very, very good at that. But you can see, obviously, that since all the notes are altered, we would not find that in regular hymns. I mean, it would sort of shock the congregation, wouldn't it? You know, but you can find them, and there's a very, very good way. Let's say you have to modulate to a key that is a half step away from the key you just used, for instance, right? This is the perfect chord to do that. But I'll show you how it works when we get to it. Right now, all we're concerned about, the only thing I want you to do is to be able to spell these guys there. Capiche?
Capisce.
Good. Okay, guys. Over now.
Thank
Talk
you.
to
Thank
you
you.
later.
Good night.
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 Okay. See you next Tuesday.